This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for joining us. The plan for next week is for Governor Asa Hutchinson to call a special session to deal with highway funding. His plan is to cobble together about $50 million in surplus and rainy day funds with a little rearrangement of about $8 to $10 million of general revenue to set the state up for a federal match of nearly $200 million. Now, some lawmakers want more, and I am joined by Scott Bennett, Director of the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department, to talk a little bit more about what's going to consume your life next week. Welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Roby. Appreciate the opportunity.
So I laid out the layman's terms of what goes on with the governor's plan. Give me a little bit of the idea of how it all kind of works in terms of the federal match and what that will kind of drive to the state of Arkansas.
Well, sure, and I think that's really the background and the backbone of what the governor is trying to do. The new Federal Highway Authorization Act passed in December, and it did bring additional federal aid highway revenue to Arkansas over the next 5 years. You know, most of that revenue actually comes from the federal fuel tax, so they're taxes that are being paid by Arkansans at the pump, sent to Washington, and then they come back to us to spend. With the additional federal funds that are coming into Arkansas, we're actually going to be short about $50 million a year, and from a state side of being able to match that additional federal revenue. Now, there are a few reasons that has happened besides just additional federal aid. One reason is when the half-cent sales tax passed back in 2012, one of the parts of that program was transferring 1 penny of our fuel tax revenue over to a state aid program for city streets. That was about a $14 million cut in highway revenue. Then a couple of years ago, we made the decision that we were going to transfer $18 million a year from construction over to maintenance. And a lot of that really began because of the snow and ice event that we had a couple of years ago. Right. We knew we needed to do a better job in maintenance, not just for winter weather, but all year long. The other big part of that is that our natural gas severance tax revenue is down probably $20+ million right. compared to last year, and it's not looking at making a turnaround for the next couple of years. And when you add all those things together, that's a little over $50 million that our revenue has suffered. So that's one of the issues too that's causing us not to be able to match this additional federal aid.
So some state lawmakers want to do some things beyond what the governor wants to do. They want to raise the gas tax, they want to perhaps raise the tax and index it for the future. Do we need to raise the gas tax? Do we need to index our fuel tax so that we don't have this recurring problem of trying to scrape money from the couch cushions?
Well, the issue with the fuel tax is that it is really a declining source of revenue because it's based on consumption. It's based on the number of gallons that people buy and use. Well, the issue is vehicles are becoming more fuel efficient, so consumption is going down and travel is still going up. We had record travel last year in Arkansas and across the country, so people are still traveling, but they're not buying as much fuel.
What are you going to do with all these Teslas and electric cars that are coming up?
Well,
I mean, that's a whole new dynamic.
Well, that's a really good question, and we actually had a bill that would assess a higher fee for alternative fueled vehicles and electric vehicles in the session last year. It was pulled at the last minute, you know, in thought of being considered in the Governor's Highway Working Group. And I think those are some things that we're still going to have to consider. But indexing is one of those issues that would help account for, you know, fuel consumption going up or fuel consumption going down,
right.
and tax revenue going down, and to help account for construction cost increases, because at the same time revenue from fuel taxes going down, construction costs are continuing to rise. So it has some merit. I think a lot of people across the country really believe that ultimately the way to fund highway improvements is a vehicle miles traveled tax, but I think it still has a long way to go also.
Is there a consensus from the Highway Commission on this current debate that will take place next week?
On the governor's plan, there is. Now, I will say this, it's a qualified consensus. We really need this additional $50 million in state revenue to match the federal aid over the next 5 years, and that's a critical, immediate need. I mean, it actually starts right now. I guess actually it started in October, and we need the first $50 million this summer before the end of our federal fiscal year. So really the consensus.
That's just to meet your existing promises.
Our existing promises, that's exactly right. And the promises that we're making in our upcoming construction program through 2020. So I think from that standpoint, there is a consensus to endorse the governor's plan with the qualification that it is just for the immediate critical needs, and we need to continue to work to find a long-term sustainable source of highway revenue.
All right, he's Scott Bennett with the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
I'll be watching them throw darts at you. It'll be fun. So
it will be fun.
Maybe we'll do a debrief afterwards. I appreciate you being here.
We can do that.
All right.